Jeffrey Epstein started his targeted grooming and manipulation of me as a child when I was in New York City for a school trip. I first came into contact with an assistant of Epstein's while on a high school drama club field trip to New York City. I was invited to his home. There, his assistant took a photo of me and then later reached out to me inviting me to Epstein's ranch. I only knew Jeffrey Epstein for 5 days, during a trip to Zorro Ranch, his massive compound surrounded by government land in the New Mexico desert. Epstein took my sexual innocence in front of a wall of framed photographs of him shaking hands and smiling with celebrities and political leaders. I was only 15 years old. After, he wanted to talk with me about what had just been my first sexual experience and directed me to take time to myself that night to cry. He said that would be beneficial to my growth. After this, we had a long talk about my future goals. I told him that I wanted to go to college to study biochemistry. He said that he wanted to give me money for college. He asked me how much money I thought he should give me. At 15 years old, living in northern Michigan with my mother, stepfather, and grandfather, I had no idea how to respond to a billionaire who had just raped me. I was being asked to quantify in monetary terms what had been taken from me. When I agreed to $5,000, he smiled and wrote a check made out to the college I so desperately wanted to attend and was not sure my parents could afford. During my trip to New Mexico, I had flown on his jet, which I later learned had been nicknamed the Lolita Express. While he was giving me a tour of the bedroom, he told me to get down and feel the carpeted floors of the room. He then asked if I noticed anything special about the floor, and I responded that it felt very soft. He laughed and said it was because the floors in the bedroom were foam mattress floors, because he liked to have girls sleep around him on the floor while he slept in the bed. I remember wanting to ask him why he would want that. However, I restrained myself out of fear of sounding like the child I was. Later, when I chose a seat on the jet, Jeffrey told me that is where his good friend Bill Clinton always chooses to sit, as if to reassure me of the elite normalcy of that type of behavior. After I returned to Michigan from Zorro Ranch, I was contacted by one of Jeffrey Epstein's assistants and invited to Epstein's Island, where I was told Prince Andrew, among others, would be a guest. I declined the invitation out of fear. I had only experienced a glimpse of Jeffrey Epstein's world, but it left me with residual trauma which seriously impacted the trajectory of my life from that moment on. I know a considerable amount of information regarding Epstein's international child sex trafficking ring has already been released to the public. And I'm here today to ask that when you hear about more of the crimes committed against me and other victims, that you don't stop at feeling sorry or bad for us, but that you feel angry. Jeffrey Epstein was only a small part of an insidious system of privilege that exploits children as sexual commodities and robs them of their youth. It was clear from the time I spent with Epstein that something was very wrong with his lifestyle, and it didn't take a victim to see that. We were not hidden. It is upsetting to me to think that anyone who was closely associated with Jeffrey Epstein might argue that they didn't suspect that he might have been sexually abusing children. Epstein wielded great villainous power in his ability to make his victims feel shame of their backgrounds, to the point where we felt grateful of any attention or invitation into his inner billionaire playground, no matter the trauma it brought upon us. I left Zorro Ranch with a deep sense of shame, not just the shame of him having sexually abused me, but the shame of knowing that I had somehow been duped. It was the weight of Epstein's wealth, the isolation to which he subjected me, and his discussion of his social connections that crushed me into submission far more than his physical strength. I'm here today to clarify my position in a corrupt system that I have not trusted to punish its own. My hope is that this case and the resulting public discourse will help me to take back some of the power and self-esteem I lost as a victim of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. For the past 16 years, I have felt isolated in my experience, and the lack of consequences for Epstein's actions has left me feeling as though there is no justice for me here. This case has brought me hope that there are people who are able and willing to assist us in our